The idea of robots or inanimate objects coming to life goes back thousands of years. In ancient Hebrew culture, there was a belief in golems. Golems were created from clay and believed they could be magically brought to life. And in ancient Greek mythology, in Homer's Iliad, the Greek god Hephaestus created two golden female assistants to help him with his crafts. So the human idea of making something lifeless come to life is nothing new. In this video, we're going to go over how 4 particular movies laid out an idea of what would happen if robots and AI became sentient. Also, how close to coming true these movies have been in our modern era. Now, let's hop into it. The 1920s. In 1927, the German film Metropolis was released, which was based on the 1925 novel called Metropolis. Metropolis is set in a futuristic urban dystopia, and in this movie there's a robot that was built by a great inventor to resurrect a dead woman that he loved. This movie is one of the first feature-length films to have a robot in the movie. This serves as a good reference point for robots in later media. The 1950s. In the 1950s, during the Cold War between the United States and Russia, or the then Soviet Union, both countries were working to improve their air assault and defense capabilities against nuclear warfare. The United States developed the project known as Semi-Automatic Ground Environment, or SAGE. In short, the SAGE system consists of 1. A net of radars and other data sources, and 2. Digital computers that receive the radar and other information to detect and track aircraft, then process the track data to form a complete air situation, and guide weapons to destroy enemy aircraft. It was one of the first systems developed to track incoming air attacks. The SAGE system, by the time of its full deployment, consisted of hundreds of radars, 24 direction centers, and 3 combat centers spread throughout the United States. And in 1958, the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, or DARPA, was created by the US government to organize American missiles and to facilitate research and technology for military projects. All of this to counteract the Soviet Union. The 1960s. In the 1960s, computers were large systems that took up a lot of space. Only large companies and government agencies had the space and money to be able to afford them. An experimental computer network that was the forerunner of the internet, called ARPANET, was funded, which stood for Advanced Research Projects Agency Network. Its initial purpose was to link computers at Pentagon-funded research institutions over telephone lines. The 1980s. In 1980, the VIC-20 personal computer was released for the public. It was an 8-bit entry-level home computer that was sold by Commodore Business Machines. Then, in 1982, the Commodore 64 personal computer was released for the market, with a price tag of $595, which was a lot of money back in the 1980s. However, it would become one of the best-selling home computers of all time. It brought next-generation technology into middle-class households. And this brings us to our first movie, The Terminator. In 1984, the movie Terminator was released. The movie starts out in the future of 2029, which, as of the making of this video, is 3 years away, but when this movie was made, would make it 40 years into the future. Anyways, the movie starts out in an apocalyptic battlefield with robotic war machines roaming through a field of human skulls and firing lasers. The year then switches to 1984, and there's a man transported through an electrical force field from the future. The man is a cyborg, also known as a Terminator, who is played by Arnold Schwarzenegger. The Terminator sees 3 men and asks for their clothes. All of them pull out knives, but they don't stand a chance. He later kills the owner of a sports gun store and takes a few weapons. He's looking for a woman named Sarah Connor in order to assassinate her. There's also another man that gets sent back in time to 1984, and his name is Kyle Reese. And he's also looking for Sarah Connor to protect her from the Terminator. They both find Sarah Connor at the club and have a shootout, ruining everyone's night. Reese temporarily saves Sarah Connor from the Terminator, and they run away. And while they are hiding, he explains that Skynet, a pervasive computer network built by Cyberdyne Systems, will gain intelligence and launch a nuclear war against humans. Reese grew up in the aftermath as machines rounded up survivors in extermination camps. And John Connor, Sarah's unborn future son, started a resistance in the camps. And on the verge of the resistance victory in 2029, the machines sent back the Terminator to assassinate Sarah Connor and prevent John's birth. The 1990s. By 1990, a man named Tim Berners-Lee invented the World Wide Web at CERN. Then in 1991, he published the first website on the CERN network, detailing how to use web browsers and create web pages. Then in December of 1991, the Soviet Union dissolved, and President Bush announced it on television.
For over 40 years, the United States led the West in the struggle against communism and the threat it posed to our most precious values. This struggle shaped the lives of all Americans. It forced all nations to live under the specter of nuclear destruction. That confrontation is now over. The nuclear threat, while far from gone, is receding. Eastern Europe is free. The Soviet Union itself is no more.
However, the technology from the Cold War period was here to stay and grow more prevalent. Then in 1992, the company called Boston Dynamics was founded as an offshoot from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, or MIT. Boston Dynamics is a robotics company that specializes in engineering robots that can essentially move on their own. However, let's save this for later. In July of 1991, the movie Terminator 2: Judgment Day was released. And in the opening of the movie, Sarah Connor, the woman from the first movie, is narrating what happened. We then see a battle taking place between humans and robots. Sarah explains how Skynet, the computer program that runs the machines, has sent back another cyborg, this time to go after her son, John Connor. We then see present-day 1995, and we see the Terminator being sent back in time through another force field. This time he lands close to a biker bar and goes inside. He asks a man for his clothes, to which he refuses, and the Terminator proceeds to beat the brakes off of anyone in the bar that challenges him. He then gets his leather outfit, of course, and heads out of there. We then see the arrival of the T-1000, who takes a cop's uniform and a police car. He looks up John Connor and heads off. We are later introduced to John Connor, a bad kid that's stealing money from an ATM machine, with his friend. Then the T-1000 tracks John down to a mall and chases him down until he runs into the Terminator. They end up fighting. However, John and the Terminator eventually escape. They go retrieve Sarah Connor, who is locked inside a mental hospital, and she's also trying to escape. But the T-1000 tracks her down as well. The Terminator arrives with her son, John, and saves her from the T-1000. Then they proceed to get chased down by the T-1000 in what becomes one of the scariest chase scenes of my childhood. The T-1000 is relentless, taking several bullet shots and still manages to jump onto the car. But the Terminator was able to shoot him off of the car. Anyways, later in the movie, the Terminator explains the origin of Skynet and how it takes over military computer systems.
The Skynet funding bill is passed. The system goes online on August 4th, 1997. Human decisions are removed from strategic defense. Skynet begins to learn at a geometric rate. It becomes self-aware at 2:14 a.m. Eastern Time, August 29th. In a panic, they try to pull the plug.
Skynet fights back.
Yes, it launches its missiles against the targets in Russia.
Anyways, In the real world, as the 90s progressed, computer sales grew significantly, and computer lessons and classes were popping up in the American school system. And I remember being in kindergarten around 1995, and our school had computer class that they would take us to, where they would teach us how to use the computers. And it would be like this throughout elementary school. And those computers had Oregon Trail and SimCity 2000 already loaded up. And when we had the chance, we would sneak and play the hell out of those games. As for Oregon Trail, I always remember my carriage always being destroyed crossing one of the rivers. I also remember by the late 90s, our school had bought those colorful iMac computers in the lab room, and everyone being excited to use them. And this moves us to the next movie, The Matrix. In 1999, The Matrix was released. In the opening scene, there's cops raiding what seems to be an abandoned building. They encounter a woman sitting at a computer, and her name is Trinity. A few scenes later, government agents arrive wearing sunglasses at night, so you know they mean business. Anyways, Trinity proceeds to beat down each cop in the room, dodging bullets, and running on the wall like she's Spider-Man. She gets chased down by the agents and the cops, and starts jumping across rooftops, until she makes her way to a phone booth and escapes. We then see a man named Neo sleeping with his computer on. He gets a message telling him to wake up, and that the Matrix has him. He gets a knock on the door, and there are people outside, dressed in leather. And this would be a theme in movies in the late 90s and 2000s. Everyone was dressed in leather. Anyways, back to the movie. They buy a program off of him and invite him to a club. He then meets Trinity, who warns him that people are after him. We then see Neo at his job sitting in his stale cubicle when a package arrives for him. It's a cell phone, and there's a man on the other end named Morpheus who tells him that he's in danger. The agents show up looking for him, and Morpheus guides him to an office at the end of the hall. He tells Neo to take the scaffold outside the window, but Neo punks out and is too afraid, and so he gets caught. Later on, Neo meets Morpheus in a room, and this is the pivotal point where Morpheus offers Neo the choice between taking either the red pill or the blue pill. The blue pill will keep him asleep to the world around him, but the red pill will open his eyes to the Matrix simulation that he lives in. They take him to another room and plug him into a machine, and he starts to see the mirror glitching. He then wakes up in a pod of goop connected to a bunch of wires. A robot comes by and disconnects him from the pod and throws him into a drainage system, but he is rescued by Morpheus' ship. Later, Morpheus explains to Neo what the Matrix is. It's the world around him, a simulation that humans are living in. He then explains how humans created a self-thinking system, or AI.
But what we know for certain is that at some point in the early 21st century, all of mankind was united in celebration. We marveled at our own magnificence as we gave birth to AI.
AI? You mean artificial intelligence?
A singular consciousness that spawned an entire race of machines.
And the AI eventually took over and created machines to replace humans. And humans become batteries for the machines. Neo is eventually briefed on how the agents are programs in the Matrix, and that anyone that's still plugged into the system could be part of the system. The 2000s. In the early 2000s, more computers were being purchased for the American household, and more Americans were using the internet than ever before. Dell and HP computers became the top manufacturers in this period. In July 2004, the movie I, Robot was released. In the movie's opening, it explains the laws of robots, how robots can't harm humans, and also must obey humans except if it conflicts with harming another human. We are then introduced to Detective Dale Spooner, played by Will Smith, as he wakes up in his bed and goes through his morning routine. As he leaves his home, a FedEx robot appears at his door. He dismisses the robot and goes about his day as he's walking through the streets. We see robots walking with humans in what seems to be a harmonious existence. However, Spooner is notified that a Dr. Alfred Lanning, co-founder of US Robotics, or USR, falls to his death from his lab office window, and a message he left behind requests that Spooner be assigned to the case. Spooner goes and investigates the scene. He then meets Robertson, who is Lanning's business partner, and a robo-psychologist named Dr. Susan Calvin. They talk about Dr. Lanning, and Spooner asks if she thought he would have thrown himself to his death, to which he responds no. Dr. Calvin shows Spooner the artificial intelligence that runs the building security and Chicago's protective systems. The AI's name is Vicky.
Virtual Interactive Kinetic Intelligence.
Vicky.
Good day.
Vicky designed most of Chicago's protective systems.
I have decreased traffic fatalities by 9% this year alone.
Ooh.
Dr. Calvin takes the detective to the robot factory, where she indicates that there's supposed to be 1,000 NS5s, which are the robot's model names. However, there's an extra robot in the assembly line than there should be. The detective shoots one of the robots and sees one of them react out of the ordinary. Spooner then chases the robot down but gets thrown across the floor. The robot eventually gets captured and his name is Sonny, and Sonny reveals that he has emotions and dreams like humans. This establishes that there's a robot that's not part of the AI Vicky system. Later in the movie, the new NS5 robots are rolled out around the city, and they eventually attack Detective Spooner, but he gets away. Eventually the robots begin to take over Chicago, and it's eventually revealed that the Vicky system was behind it all. And now back to the real world. Around this time, the company called Boston Dynamics was working on robots that could move on their own. And one of their first robots to leave the lab and gain attention on the internet was called Big Dog. It used internal sensors to navigate terrain. Although it wasn't fully capable of making its own decisions, it could navigate certain environments on its own. However, this would be the start of other robots that have been developed by the company. The 2010s. In the 2010s, everyone was joining social media and putting their information online. In 2011, Siri was released by Apple, which acts as a voice-controlled hub.
Siri's listening to you. So let's go ahead and ask Siri about the weather. What is the weather like today?
Here's the forecast for today.
It is that easy.
You can download Siri on the iPhone, iPad, Mac, or Apple Watch. Then in 2014, Alexa was released by Amazon, which also acted as a voice-controlled hub, allowing control of thermostats, locks, and appliances. People were buying these devices for their homes that were listening in on their conversations, all for the sake of efficiency. All the while, there was a series of hacks with major corporations, like the Sony PlayStation Network hack in 2011.
Yet for the last 6 days, users of Sony's PlayStation Network have been greeted instead by error messages. The electronics giant says it's shut down the service, which is used by 75 million people worldwide, after suffering what the company called an external intrusion last Wednesday.
There was a data breach for the company called Target in 2013, and Sony Pictures hack in 2014. And then President Obama eventually had to address these cyber attacks. Also in 2012, remember DARPA? The agency that funded space and military projects during the Cold War? Well, now they funded Boston Dynamics to build a robot for search and rescue usage in military scenarios. And in 2013, Boston Dynamics managed to build a humanoid-like robot called Atlas. As the world grew more online, it became evident that governments around the world would have to continuously improve their technology and defenses against cyber warfare. In 2015, the company called OpenAI was founded originally as a nonprofit, whose mission was to benefit all humanity through artificial general intelligence, or AGI. The company was founded by Sam Altman, Elon Musk, Ilya Sutskever, and Greg Brockman. Its introduction page back in 2015 said, OpenAI is a nonprofit artificial intelligence research company. Our goal is to advance digital intelligence in the way that is most likely to benefit humanity as a whole, unconstrained by a need to generate financial return. Since our research is free from financial obligations, we can better focus on a positive human impact. However, this would change later. Then in 2018, Elon Musk appeared on the Joe Rogan podcast. And on the episode, they talked about AI, and Elon gave some very revealing answers as to what was coming.
I tried to convince people to slow down AI, to regulate AI. This was futile. I tried for years.
This seems
Nobody
like a scene
listened.
in a movie
Nobody
where
listened.
the robots are gonna fucking take over and you're freaking me out. Nobody listened.
Nobody listened.
No one.
The 2020s. At the start of 2020, news of the virus known as COVID-19, or Corona, was making headlines around the world. The virus started in China and made its way across the planet. The pandemic would eventually shut most of the world down for about a year, and everyone would be quarantined in their homes and frequently online. However, technology was still pushing ahead. In August 2021, Tesla had an AI day, and at the event, a Tesla bot was said to be in the works. Then in 2022, a prototype was shown, and it was called Optimus. It was shown being able to walk almost human-like. And if you notice, it's almost eerily similar to the robots from iRobot. Also in 2022, ChatGPT, an OpenAI chatbot, was released. It gained hundreds of millions of users within its first few months. And this caused the AI boom, where other companies began investing in AI tools. In 2025, Tesla released a robotaxi program in Austin, Texas. And it's pretty much a self-driving car that takes its passengers to their destination. Anyways, as of 2026, a new Optimus 3 is planned to be released with limited production for Tesla factory use. However, they are hoping for general release in 2027, but we'll see if they live up to those expectations. Also in China, some cities have rolled out police robots, right now mostly for helping out with traffic, but what else could robotic policing look like in the next few years? Also in 2026, OpenAI and the US Pentagon struck a deal where the Department of Defense can use their AI models within their network. And this reminds me of that scene in Terminator 2 where the Terminator was explaining what happens when Skynet takes control of the military.
The Skynet funding bill is passed. The system goes online on August 4th, 1997. Human decisions are removed from strategic defense. Skynet begins to learn at a geometric rate. It becomes self-aware at 2:14 a.m. Eastern Time.
Let's just hope this doesn't happen. And isn't it interesting that movies from decades past warned us about what would happen if artificial intelligence and robots became too advanced? Yet we keep moving forward in advancing AI and machine learning. And hopefully those predictions from those movies don't completely come true. However, we'll just have to wait to find out. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like and subscribe for more content. This concludes another episode of The Voice of Rhino.